Tonight on Chat News at 5, tires slashed. Vandals were out in the Southeast Hill area early this morning. Vaccine plans. The last local school board to do so has made a decision on their COVID-19 vaccination policy.
Plus in sports, the Medicine Hat Tigers take part in a unique team bonding experience.
From Medicine Hat, this is the Chat Evening News with Dan Reynish.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you very much for watching tonight. Several people in Medicine Hat woke up this morning to find the tires slashed on their vehicles. Police have yet to confirm details, but residents spent the day dealing with the problem. At least 9 vehicles were vandalized in the Southeast Hill area on 11th Street and Cambridge Street. There were also social media posts of damage on Belfast and Aberdeen streets. Residents say police canvassed the neighborhood today looking for security cam footage. At least 2 vehicles had a pair of tires slashed on each. And one of the victims, Natasha McDonald, said that the slashings that happened in the neighborhood that she lived in seemed somewhat random.
This morning, the police came around 8 o'clock saying that the tires had been slashed on a few vehicles out front. And so one of our vehicles, both the tires were slashed, and then 2 across the street, actually 3 across the street had been slashed as well.
There's also social media posts about possible tire slashing in Redcliffe overnight. Midnight Madness in the downtown core will take place next Friday, November 19th. The local businesses have put together a full slate of events to get you into the Christmas buying spirit. Darren Rathwell is here tonight with all the details.
Probably one of the biggest nights of the year.
Darren McKay from the local eatery Not Talking Christmas, but close. It's Midnight Madness, returning this year to downtown.
This time, a little bit more geared towards an event, so family can come down, something for the kids.
Shopping for you and your loved ones will be featured, of course, with stores open till midnight. Don't forget about the tree lighting, and the Chamber of Commerce says that's just a little of what's planned.
Hay rides and a petting zoo, but we also have some of our local restaurants that are going to be bringing in entertainment and bands.
McKay says the business community believes the event is so important it motivated downtown merchants to organize their own group. It was late summer when McKay says about 30 businesses gathered to discuss how to promote the downtown core. They then formed the Downtown Collective. And then talks about organizing Midnight Madness began with the Chamber of Commerce.
Just a great way to inject that pre-Christmas shopping into our local economy and encourage people to support local.
Marco Longmore at Labels for Men is one of the merchants behind the return of Midnight Madness.
I think this year specifically is going to be really important just to kind of get people out and about again. It's been so long since there's been any type of event.
And along with the sound of any jingle bells you might hear, there's hope there will be a lot of cash registers ringing.
I know a lot of retail businesses will rely on this day to get them through that January, February when things are slower.
And organizers are hopeful that, based on last year's turnout, Midnight Madness 2021 will succeed too.
So you did see a lot of turnout and a lot of people spending dollars within the community, which is nice. And we just want to keep that trend coming.
Midnight Madness takes place on November 19th, starting at 4 p.m. Darren Rathwell, Chat News.
Midnight Madness isn't the only big thing happening downtown. Now towering over the Guinness-certified world's largest chess set between the library and the Court of Queen's Bench is what could be the world's largest chess piece. This royal piece stands 20 feet 11 inches or 6.37 meters tall, and it is 9 feet 3 inches or 2.81 meters at the base. The current record holder is in St. Louis, standing 20 feet or 6.09 meters tall, and it's 9 feet 2 inches or 2.79 meters at the base. It's big, that's true. The Medicine Hat Chess Club is contacting Guinness World Records to see if there's a new king in town. Club president Dr. Bill Taylor says building the piece and going for the record was the brainchild of Adam Sulsky almost 10 years ago, and Taylor says he was quick to throw his support behind it.
I had a few patients in the office have commented. Generally speaking, they say amazing, spectacular, wonderful work of art. I found out yesterday from a patient in the office that even Rachel Notley has tweeted about the giant king in Medicine Hat. So it's being well received, and as I would expect, because it's a pretty impressive structure.
The construction of the piece was funded by the Chess Club and Dr. Taylor himself. So when I was outside earlier today, it was sunny, it was nice, but it was windy. And outside right now, it looks fairly nice and continues to be windy. The good news is for those that are going to be outdoors tomorrow at a Remembrance Day ceremony, the wind is going to die down tomorrow, but it'll pick up again on Friday. Right now, the temperature, our daytime high of 9, the wind coming from the northwest. The northerly wind is why things are getting colder, and it's about 24 kilometers an hour. In just a few minutes, I'll bring you the full AccuWeather forecast here on Chat News at 5. Straight ahead, a healthy person was recently rescued by the most perfect of strangers. Prairie Rose Public Schools has decided to put in place a COVID-19 vaccination policy. The decision was made on Tuesday during a public board meeting. By a vote of 4-3, the Board of Trustees approved a motion requiring proof of full COVID-19 vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test result for all staff who work directly with students. The policy only applies to those who work directly with students. It does not apply to students, parents, outside contractors, or volunteers. The issue was raised last month, but the board decided to leave the decision to the new board following the municipal election. Board Chair Kathy Hogg says the decision was made in the best interests of the school community.
In addition to the COVID re-entry procedures and guidelines that are already in place for Prairie Rose schools, the board believes the policy requiring vaccination or testing for staff who work closely with students will provide that added layer of protection for everyone in the school setting, especially for those who are most vulnerable. We as trustees have a policy to ensure safe and caring schools.
Hogg says the requirements will be enforced starting February 1st of next year. Medicine Hat Public School Division and Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education enacted their vaccination policies last month. Let's look at today's COVID-19 numbers as they do continue to go down. Right now, there's 64 active cases of COVID-19 in Medicine Hat, 2 new cases in our city today, 4 people recovered. There's 17 inpatients at Medicine Hat Regional Hospital with 2 in the ICU. Among Hatters 12 and over, 84.4% now have received at least 1 dose of a vaccine, and 78.7% are fully vaccinated. There's 484 new cases across the province in the past 24 hours. 582 Albertans are in hospital with COVID-19, 123 of which in the ICU. The province completed 11,169 tests in the past 24 hours. The positivity rate right now is about 4.3%. All of the latest numbers can be found online at chatnewstoday.ca. University of Calgary researchers say the economic, social, and environmental impacts of a coal mine on protected land on the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains would be negative. A paper from the University School of Public Policy says there would not be an overall benefit to Alberta. Jennifer Winter says the latest information on coal markets suggests coal a mine would be marginally profitable and its job and tax benefits would be small in retaliation to Alberta's economy. It also says a mine would displace ranching and tourism, damage water and wildlife, and create a risk the taxpayers would end up paying for with cleanup. Before we take a break, just a reminder that due to COVID-19 health orders, we are all not able to get together again at the Cenotaph in Riverside Veterans Memorial Park tomorrow for Remembrance Day, but there will still be a ceremony. Members from Canadian Forces Base Suffield, Battis, South Alberta Light Horse, Medicine Hat Police Service, Royal Canadian Legion, and more will form up outside the Esplanade, and they will parade to the park. More than 150 people will take part in the park parade and the event, and there will be a viewing area set up for the public. People are welcome to line the 2-block route, maintaining social distancing guidelines, and there will be a place blocked off on the street for people to witness the ceremony. The ceremony itself is also being live streamed online by Cook Southland Funeral Chapel. You can join them online at approximately 10:45 tomorrow morning, and you'll find the link online at chatnewstoday.ca. And just a head up for tomorrow, the Family Leisure Centre will be open only from noon to 5. City Hall, the Esplanade, and Co-op Place all closed to the public, and Medicine Hat Transit does not offer holiday service. The Medicine Hat Mall will be open from noon to 5, and Town Hall in Redcliffe will also be closed. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back with much more for you tonight here on Chat News at 5. Coming up, why it will likely take months to deal with the surgery backlogs in Alberta and Saskatchewan. On the early evening of June 6th in London, Ontario, a Muslim Canadian family out for a stroll was killed, run over by a truck. As police built their case, the reason why was never fully explained. During the investigation, police found a large volume of ideological writings in the suspect's truck, home, and computer, which allegedly showed he was heavily influenced by the man who live-streamed a portion of his attack on 2 mosques in New Zealand in 2019. The driver of the truck later became the first person charged under Canada's anti-terrorism laws for an alleged Islamophobic act. But he may not be the last. As you'll hear in about 15 minutes on Chat News at 5, manifestos are becoming far more common with extremists and are meant to resonate with like-minded individuals. It was a chance encounter that turned out to be a lifesaver. A healthy 30-something nearly died after suffering a heart episode. But as Jill Croteau reports, he was rescued by the most perfect strangers.
It was a routine run along the river. Everything about it as ordinary as it could be. Except on this August afternoon, something pretty unbelievable was about to happen.
It's either the most implausible coincidence or something else, right?
34-year-old Eric McVeigh collapsed. Time was ticking. His heart stopped. He was at the mercy of a miracle.
Well, those could have been my last breaths. It's hard to really understand how this came about, to be so lucky. But of course, I'm so grateful for Corey and Jennifer that the fact that they were there that day.
The couple, who by chance took a different route out of their Mount Royal neighborhood that same day, hit the intersection at the exact moment Eric just dropped.
So we pulled over, and then when I checked Eric, he had no pulse. And then Jennifer got out of her side of the car, and we both checked again, and neither one of us could find a pulse.
I saw Eric fell, and I was like, this is happening again. It was just wild. Yeah, the chances, I can't even imagine how slim that would be.
The odds of it happening are hard to measure because what's so inconceivable? This has happened to this husband and wife couple before. Months ago, on a hike in Canmore, 60-year-old Daryl Parker suffered a heart attack. The duo was there at the right place, right time, and performed CPR to save his life.
The odds, they continue to be astronomical, and I don't even know how to say it.
I'm a believer in fate. I'm a believer in that things happen for a reason. It's definitely a stroke of luck and a stroke of fate, and whatever you call it, it's unbelievable.
These rescues are even more remarkable because Adams is Dr. Adams. He's a cardiac surgeon. Jennifer is also a physician. After resuscitating these separate strangers, within days of saving them, Dr. Corey Adams performed both of their heart surgeries.
Everybody in the healthcare just has to work at their little piece in order for an outcome like this to occur. And together we can have a big story.
He saved my life, right? But I mean, he also saved my parents and my sister from having to grieve their son and brother. It's not just my life he saved my whole family.
Jill Croteau, Global News.
Chat Weather, brought to you by Design Flooring Center, with you every step of the way.
Chat Weather, powered by AccuWeather.
The days this week have been fairly nice, but the nights have gotten pretty cold, and I have to admit, I did it. I turned the heat on last night. It just got too cold, and I knew there was colder nights coming. The days, well, they're going to be colder tomorrow as well. The day is going to be colder tomorrow, but then we'll warm up a little bit as we head into next week. Now today, still 3 times seasonal average. Usually it's 3 at this time of year. It was 9 today. It is 5 out there right now. The wind has changed direction. We'd had a southerly wind the majority of this week. It's now a west-northwesterly wind, and that's why this number 5 that you see or you hear me telling you about, that's probably as warm as we're going to get in the next 24 hours. But Warmer days are coming. It's fairly cloudy out there right now. The sun will be back tomorrow. It will be a beautiful looking day for Remembrance Day. Right now it's 7 in Bow Island and in Lethbridge, 5 degrees in Calgary, 8 in Brooks and Drumheller, and Edmonton is 3. It's fairly cloudy in Calgary and in Lethbridge. It's a clear sky almost everywhere else. As we go into Saskatchewan, Still, main parts of Saskatchewan along the Yellowhead Highway are dealing with the snowfall warning. By the time today is over, and Regina ended up getting some after all, by the time this is over, some places are going to see 20 centimeters of snow. By the way, the warnings are starting to fade away in Saskatchewan, and now the city of Winnipeg has a snowfall warning in place as this system you'll see in a moment starts to push through. Right now in Saskatoon, rain, wet snow there, -2 degrees, 4 in Leader, 5 in Maple Creek, 2 in Swift Current, and 0 with the rain and some wet stuff in Regina. So there's that big pattern there as it sort of circles around Saskatoon, but it is also moving over. There it goes, center of your screen. You see that low pressure system push in, and as it gets to the other side of Manitoba and starts to go further into Ontario, it actually gets bigger. So that system is getting bigger, but the majority of it now is going to fall in the States. So while there will be some in southern Ontario, some in Atlantic Canada as well, the majority of that system here that is moving through is going to fall below the parallel line. And then we might have to deal with this low pressure system if it expands further and comes up toward us on the weekend. Right now, slight chance of some precipitation. Earlier today, there was more than a slight chance, but right now it's back to being a slight chance. If we do see some rain or maybe some snow on Saturday, it's not going to be any huge accumulation, although that day is coming. Here's your day planner for Remembrance Day in Brooks. You're going to get to 3 degrees with some intermittent clouds. It'll start off cold at -5. Colder in Leader, -7, feeling like -10 before the sun comes out, and you only get to 1 degree. Maple Creek, 2 degrees tomorrow, starting at -4, feeling like -8. By this time tomorrow, it'll be back down to -3 degrees in Maple Creek. And here at Medicine Hat, -4, feels like -6, -8 to start the day off. Partly sunny by noon, so there will be some sunshine to see tomorrow, but 3, maybe 5 degrees, and then by this time tomorrow, by 6 o'clock, -2 degrees. So that's why tonight we could probably use a picture like this one that Kimberly sent in. Kimberly, beautiful stuff. Thank you very much. Weather picture brought to us by Prestige Windows and Doors, and you can send your photo into weatherpics@chatnewstoday.ca. Kimberly says, early morning sky on my morning walk toward Police Point Park. That is fantastic. Curtis Nash will probably, that tree, Curtis, doesn't that look like the Bruckheimer, Jerry Bruckheimer, Don Simpson logo at the start of all of their movies? Yeah, that's good stuff. Thank you very much, Kimberly. Thank you. And again, weatherpics@chatnewstoday.ca is where you can send your photos. We're back with more news, plus Scott Roblin has sports, that and much more coming up tonight here on Chat News at 5. Still to come, the first North American Leaders Summit since the Obama administration will take place in Washington next week. Good evening, I'm Dan Reynish. Chat News won't be here tomorrow at noon or 5 as we will be recognizing Remembrance Day, but we have plenty of news for you still to come tonight. COVID-19 cases are coming down across Alberta and Saskatchewan after a punishing fourth wave. ICUs became so full that for weeks, thousands of surgeries had to be delayed, and as Heather Yurix West explains, it will likely take months to deal with the backlog.
For Leah Crawford, a difficult fourth wave of COVID-19 led to 4 additional months of pain.
It's unimaginable because, I'm in enough pain as it is. I'm not having this hysterectomy just because, I'm having it for a reason.
The Calgary woman, one of thousands to have a surgery postponed as Alberta struggled to cope with a surge in COVID patients that nearly brought the health system to its knees. With that surge now subsiding, doctors are once again in the OR, though the system is nowhere near back to full capacity.
I'm still operating only a fraction of the time I normally operate. So I anticipate it'll take months before we're able to work through the backlog for sure.
It's been very difficult to find operative time to deal with these cancers that have a tendency to grow very quickly.
Dr. Oliver Baith treats GI, liver, and pancreatic cancer patients with often aggressive tumors that may have seen their disease spread during the delay.
It's too soon to tell. I think it'll be a long time before we understand fully what the impact of this is on people's cancer prognosis.
Alberta Health Services is now prioritizing pediatric and cancer patients, but the backlog for other surgeries may take longer to clear. Last week, the Saskatchewan Health Authority's CEO said it could be 18 months before that province is able to perform orthopedic surgeries again.
I think it's going to be tremendously hard. We were already working in a system that was restrained in terms of the number of surgeries and meeting surgical targets in terms of wait times for surgeries.
With thousands of additional patients now in the queue, the surgery backlog represents another wave of extraordinary health system strain. Heather Urex-West, Global News, Calgary.
There is new insight tonight about why the man accused of running down a Muslim Canadian family in London, Ontario last spring, killing 4, is facing terrorism charges. And as Mike Drolet reports, authorities are increasingly worried about extremist manifestos accessed online.
There was never a doubt as to what happened in the early evening of June 6th in London, Ontario. A Muslim Canadian family out for a stroll was killed, allegedly run over by a truck driven by Nathaniel Veltman. As police built their case, the why was hinted at but never fully explained, even though the Muslim community had made up its mind.
They all know what it was. There was no doubt right from the get-go that this was an act of terror.
Global News has now learned from multiple sources that police found a large volume of ideological writings in the suspect's truck, home, and computer, which allegedly showed he was heavily influenced by Brenton Tarrant, who live-streamed a portion of his attack on 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand in 2019. Police also found documents allegedly written by Veltman that referenced Tarrant, which may explain why Veltman later became the first person charged under Canada's anti-terrorism laws for an alleged Islamophobic act.
I can't keep showing up at funerals and learning afterwards about how they were motivated, how much white supremacist literature did they consume. I don't want to do that anymore. And I know that Canadian Muslims don't want to do that anymore. And that's why it has to stop. It has to change.
But the opposite appears to be true. A report from Canada's Integrated Terrorism Assessment Centre, acquired by Global News through the Freedom of Information Act, points to manifestos becoming far more common with extremists and are meant to resonate with like-minded individuals. Tarrant's manifesto in particular has inspired others.
He also laced his manifesto with jokes and irony, things that would appeal to the internet generation, things that are kind of inside jokes in certain chat rooms. And so even while he displayed this incredible level of barbarity, he's still doing it with a wink and a nod to internet culture. And I think that really resonated with the far right.
Our call is simple. No more violence.
Earlier this week, the National Council of Canadian Muslims released our London Family Act, which would target Islamophobia through education and accountability. They want the Ontario government to act urgently. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will join his U.S. and Mexican counterparts at the White House next week for the first North American Leader Summit since the Obama administration. The face-to-face comes at a crucial time when trade issues, migration, supply chain constraints, and the pandemic continue to impact each country on an individual and collective basis. Reggie Cicchini has a preview.
It's been 5 years since North American leaders held a trilateral meeting after the summits were shelved during the Trump administration. The final get-together in 2016 showcased an awkward family photo, but it highlighted a sense of collegiality, much of which broke down under Donald Trump. Next week's meeting aims to recenter that focus to strengthen relationships, but it comes amid economic tensions bolstered after NAFTA was redrafted. An outpost will be available for both the Prime Minister and Mexico's president to voice concern over the Buy American American policy, which is viewed as protectionist. There's also worry over proposed subsidies for electric vehicles for Americans, which critics argue hinders competitiveness. Now, Canada might look to settle issues over softwood lumber, while dairy and supply management, a problem for both Canada and the U.S., is still a thorny subject. Supply issues and the climate will also be key areas that the three will look for common ground on, along with geopolitical threats, namely China's growth.
Xi Jinping is going to have a conversation with Joe Biden, a virtual summit, right before his meeting with the North Americans. That's a great opportunity because Trudeau and AMLO cannot get one-on-ones with Xi Jinping. So they'll be asking him, what's he like? What's he saying? What's his intent?
This will be Justin Trudeau's first working visit to D.C. since June 2019, and what had been a rocky relationship between Ottawa and Washington, with the Prime Minister pushing back on divisive politicking often used by Donald Trump, which was a far cry from the so-called bromance between Trudeau and Barack Obama. But more important than the photo ops and smiles are the issues that impact Canadians, and this meeting will give Ottawa a chance to exert itself as one of three countries and not just a bystander to American policy. Reggie Cicchini, Global News, Washington.
Time is running out for the nearly 200 countries at the UN Climate Summit to agree on what they'll do to keep a lid on rising temperatures. A draft agreement released today sets the stage for last-minute negotiations now underway. It's clear there's a sense of urgency, but whether that translates into concrete plans to cut carbon emissions remains the big question. Crystal Gamansing has the latest.
With a clock ticking down in Glasgow, a preview today at how far negotiators have come in hammering out a new climate deal. The draft document urges countries to ramp up efforts to phase out coal and fossil fuel subsidies. But critics are warning it's not enough.
We need much more concrete action to be sure that we actually really meet this 1.5 target.
Activists say the 6-page draft lacks clear deadlines and is short on specifics as to how key areas will be addressed. There's also no language requiring countries to be transparent about their progress.
What we need to do is to streamline the text, because the best decision is a short decision that is clear for everybody and there is no room for alternate facts or alternate interpretation.
Boris Johnson reappeared at the summit Wednesday as the draft copy of the Glasgow Agreement landed with a thud. He's urging countries to pull out all the stops to limit global warming.
Will you help us grasp that opportunity, or will you stand in the way?
Developing nations bearing the brunt of the crisis say they need more support. They've been clear they need wealthier nations to step up financially. The draft calls on countries to urgently scale up climate financing, but no deadlines are attached.
I think it's important to recognize that ambition also requires acknowledging that there is inadequate adaptation and financial efforts to tackle the impacts of the climate crisis.
With just 2 days to go, a positive signal. The world's two largest emitters, the U.S. and China, announced a surprise deal to work together to tackle climate change.
Together, we set out our support for a successful COP26.
Now it's up to negotiators to get firm commitments on paper.
I still think we can achieve it, but I'm not going to pretend to you that it is by any means a done deal.
Johnson has already hinted talks could extend past Friday. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
Punjabi troops have been prominent throughout Canadian military history, especially during the First World War. Still, few are aware of the critical role they played in that conflict, even for one of Canada's most important battles. Now there's a push to get them their long overdue recognition. Nitu Gatso reports.
After 4 days without respite, it was these Indian soldiers who were called in by the Canadians as reinforcements in the Second Battle of Ypres on April 26, 1915, helping to stop the advance of German forces.
Without the participation of the Punjabi soldiers, Ypres would have been lost. The Canadian forces wouldn't have actually been able to hold the line at Ypres.
In a war about 1.3 million Indian soldiers served in, more than Canadians, Australians, and New Zealanders combined.
We literally have Punjabi, the kin of the Punjabi that are on the Komagata fighting to defend the Canadian line in Flanders.
Through this exhibit at the Museum of Surrey, BC historian Stephen Purewal is sharing these often forgotten stories of selfless service. A pillar of the faith these Sikh Vancouver police officers say motivates them.
I think our faith plays a major role in that, and it's a part of our fabric is to serve the community.
The men that fought in that war ensured that I could stand here today with a turban and a beard in a Vancouver Police Department uniform.
Both officers are also part of this heritage film, written and directed by Purewal. But like his efforts to have the untold stories of Sikh soldiers incorporated into social studies curriculums across Canada, he's run into barriers.
We're still looking for more funding. What are the priorities?
It is a common experience, too, of being colonials.
He's also turned this exhibit into a book, which he's giving to every Canadian MP.
I did not understand before coming here that India had the second largest standing army at the time of World War I to Britain.
Especially on the 100-year anniversary of the poppy, coinciding with the 50th anniversary of Canada's first multiculturalism policy, Purewal says it's time to correct the narrative,
which I feel has a Eurocentric lens to the detriment of many minority communities.
Neetu Garcha, Global News, Surrey, BC.
Another story from World War I still to come tonight. Up next, Scott Roblin will be right here with sports.
For close to half a century, Bob Irving has been the voice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but that streak will come to an end next month. That story and more when we return.
Chat Sports, brought to you by the Landscape Depot. Quality landscape supplies. Get creative in your outdoor living space with the Landscape Depot.
Welcome back. It's not hard to imagine a bit of frustration from the Medicine Hat Tigers recently, playing some of their most consistent hockey, only to not have results fall their way. But the team is staying the course through this 5-game slide, knowing they're playing better than the record shows. And veteran Noah Danielson says the solution will come from within.
Focus on the positive, focus on what we can control. That's our work ethic and our attitude. So I think just coming to the rink every day with a good work ethic and a good attitude will help us just get over this whole slump.
Adversity is going to make you stronger, and we're dealing with a little bit of that right now. And I think by the time the end of the year comes around, we're going to be a lot better because of it. Right now, like you said, we're not getting the results we want, but I think we just keep our nose to the grindstone. We're going to get better and better.
For the Tigers to be successful this year, they'll need a team that works in tandem with each other. Last night, the Tabbies put that to the test, participating in a unique team-building exercise. With more, here's Tegan Rasha.
The Urban Rodeo Grounds is probably the last place you'd expect to see the Medicine Hat Tigers. But they were there on Tuesday night, trading in their skates for boots.
It gives our players something different, and they really look forward to times being away from the rink where they can just be normal, where there's not hockey, it's just normal, and they just get to do things together as a group.
Early in the season, Tigers head coach Willie Desjardins wanted to find a fresh way to get his players working together as a team. He reached out to Avalon Equine, who have plenty of experience working with sports teams, according to owner Linda Kraft.
The players are given objectively driven exercises to work together as a team to overcome some obstacles, and sometimes they get some takeaways that they can use in their even day-to-day lives.
Players were started off with writing exercises, observing the horses' personalities and body language, as well as guessing their ages and genders.
Just like horses, people, teammates, there's different herd dynamics that exist, and so they observed and they were able to see which horses and draw certain parallels as well to their teammates. So I'm excited to see what they have written.
Once the observations were done, the Tigers were placed in groups and led the horses through a variety of obstacles. Defender Rhett Parsons has some experience with horses, growing up in a small farming community. but had never done anything like this.
It's a great team building activity to get out here, and I know a lot of people don't get to be around horses in their life, so yeah, it's good to get out here.
Desjardins wanted his team to leave a closer unit, but also stressed the importance of giving the young group a chance to have some fun.
You always have to work as a group. You know, if you work as a group, everything's easier. You know, and everybody's different. Every animal's different, and I think you have to recognize every player's different. And I think they'll see that you know, as you go through it. So I don't know if there's any big takeaways. As long as they have some fun and you know, enjoy themselves, I think that's a big one.
I think everyone enjoys it, kind of something new, getting out with these horses and getting to interact with them. I know my first time is something new, so I just hope they enjoy it.
And that's what the players did. Apprehensive at the start, but working together and laughing by the end. Tegan Rasha, Chat Sports.
Brooks Bandits forward Ryan McAllister earning some national recognition today.
Pass. It's got McAllister in front, and he scores.
McAllister has been named the Canadian Junior Hockey League's first star of the month for October. The AJHL's top scorer netted 27 points in just 12 games last month and has only been held off the score sheet twice this year. As McAllister is succeeding, so are the Bandits, who have won their last 17 games in a row. Tonight, they'll look to extend that streak to 18, hosting the basement-dwelling Olds Grizzlies. Brooks has won all 3 of their meetings against Olds so far this season. Game time is set for 6:30 tonight. One of the most iconic football broadcasters in Canada will be hanging up the mic at the end of this CFL season. Abigail Turner has more on the pending retirement of Bombers voice, Bob Irving.
There was one point during the midway portion of the season where it just hit me that this is the right time now.
The game has ended, and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the beat goes on.
For nearly 5 decades, a recognizable voice behind the mic of roughly 900 Blue Bombers games will come to an end December 5th when 680 CJOB play-by-play announcer Bob Irving retires after the CFL's Western Final. A career many are calling legendary seemed far-fetched at first.
I was in university for a year in Regina. I dropped out and I said to my mom and dad, I want to be a sports announcer. And they looked at me like, okay.
But it was that passion that led Irving to the Blue Bombers in 1973, where after only a year at CJOB, they handed him the play-by-play job, making decades of memories, including 2 Grey Cups, but too many favorites to choose from.
Lots of individual highlights, most of them involving Milt Stegall, one of the greatest Bombers of all time.
And he's built many special relationships, including with current head coach Mike O'Shea.
Holding back the emotions. I don't know that you ever expect that this relationship will develop between the head coach and the play-by-play man for our broadcast. We spend a lot of time talking about life and family, and I hope that never changes.
Irving's advice for the person who fills his shoes, who will have to walk into the media room at IG Field bearing Irving's name.
Don't try to mimic anybody's style. Just describe the games the way you see them. Be you, and everything will work out fine. That's what happened to me, and it'll happen to the person who succeeds me.
As for where you can find him next season...
She's the best.
She's the best. That's right.
I don't know. I'll either be in the press box or I'll be sitting in one of these seats having a beer. And I might even say, go Bombers. It's hard to cheer, you know, when you're in our business. It's hard to cheer outwardly, but I might just do that.
Abigail Turner, Global News.
So while you and I have met many, many, many people in the sports industry in this world, neither one of us have met him, but you certainly have to respect that career.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I know people who have worked in Winnipeg and have had conversations with Bob Irving, and just the legacy that he's leaving behind in the CFL at the end of this year is going to be a big one. And the thing that everybody's got to remember is he's still calling this season, and Winnipeg is right now the best team in the CFL, so might have a shot at calling a 3rd Grey Cup championship.
Boy, wouldn't that be great for him to call a Grey Cup championship game and then drop the microphone and walk out?
It'd be pretty remarkable end to a lengthy career, and has called some big games. That one might be the biggest.
In your face, Peyton Manning. He's I've heard him on the air, though. He's fantastic, and I hope they do find somebody that can fill his shoes.
Yeah, it's going to be big shoes, but quite the broadcaster.
All right, a recap of today's top stories coming up. when we return, a letter from World War I that paints a clear picture of a soldier's bravery, pride, and unimaginable grief. You're watching Chat News at 5. Here's a recap of today's top stories. It was a busy morning for police and car owners in the Southeast Hill area today after a tire slasher was on the loose in Medicine Hat. Area residents say at least 10 vehicles were damaged early this morning on 11th Street and Cambridge Street. There were also social media reports of damage on Belfast and Aberdeen streets. Residents say police canvassed the neighborhood today looking for security cam footage. Police have yet to comment on the wave of tire slashings. Prairie Rose Public Schools have decided to put in place a COVID-19 vaccination policy. The decision was made on Tuesday during a public board meeting. By a vote of 4-3, the Board of Trustees approved a motion requiring proof of COVID-19 vaccination or a negative COVID-19 test result for all staff who work directly with students. The policy only applies to those who work directly with students. It does not apply to students, parents, outside contractors, or volunteers. Board Chair Kathy Hogg says the decision was made in the best interests of the school community. Medicine Hat Public School Division and Medicine Hat Catholic Board of Education enacted their vaccination policies last month. For more information on these and other stories, please visit our website at chatnewstoday.ca. November 11th marks the date the First World War ended in 1918. Just weeks before then, the armistice, a Canadian aviator was horribly burned trying to save a fellow pilot in France. Lieutenant James Gordon Moore survived for 10 agonizing months in a British hospital, living just long enough to see one of his sisters travel from Toronto. Her letter back to their family in Canada paints a clear picture of his bravery, pride, and unimaginable grief. With more, here's Redmond Shannon.
Dear Marjorie, I hardly know how to write to you, for as you will know, it is not easy for me to go through everything again.
A century-old letter telling a heartbreaking tale of First World War pilot Lieutenant James Gordon Moore.
As my grandmother says, Gordon and his machine.
Maureen Kitchen's grandmother was Moore's cousin. In 1916, the 21-year-old enlisted for the war, flying bombing missions into Germany with Britain's Royal Flying Corps, and later becoming a test pilot.
From all accounts, he was a very good guy. His sisters all obviously adored him.
Just 3 weeks before the war ended, Moore's plane crashed in France. He was thrown clear, but was horribly burned when trying to save the Australian co-pilot. His older sister, Thurza, sailed from Canada to England to be with him at his bedside. After 10 long months of suffering, Lieutenant Moore died in a London hospital. A grieving Thurza wrote to her sister Marjorie about Gordon's final days.
He often said to me that he couldn't bear to have people see him. He was so sensitive, and really, I do feel Gordon was happy to go. He was so peaceful. I stayed with him and I held him for a long time, but I knew he was going. He was so thin and had failed so terribly. They told me to leave him as they didn't want me to see him die. So I kissed him and he said, yes, goodbye.
Maureen found the letter in her parents' house a decade ago, unearthing a family pain sealed for decades inside an envelope.
I know how hard it will be to us, as Gordon was everything to us, but we must not be selfish and wish him back, for he has surely had his suffering. Gordon was simply worshipped by the flyers over here, and they never stopped talking about his bravery.
The letter details Moore's full military funeral at this London cemetery.
You could tell in that letter that really helped them deal with the fact that he was gone. He did not die in vain.
Maureen believes his 4 sisters were never the same again. Their only solace, that Gordon was finally at peace. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
To COVID-19 health orders, we are not able to gather again at the Cenotaph in Riverside Veterans Memorial Park this year to honor our veterans on Remembrance Day tomorrow, but there will still be a ceremony and people are welcome, maintaining social distance guidelines, to stand on the blocked off street outside the park. The ceremony will also be live streamed online by Cook Southland Funeral Chapel. You can join them online at approximately 10:45 tomorrow morning, and you'll find the link on our website at chatnewstoday.ca. Also tomorrow, the Family Leisure Centre only open from noon until 5. City Hall, the Esplanade, Co-op Place, all closed to the public. Medicine Hat Transit not operating tomorrow, and Medicine Hat Mall will be open from noon to 5. Town Hall in Redcliffe will also be closed. And the weather tomorrow, it is going to be a little bit chillier than what we've had now that the wind has changed to a northerly direction. Only about a high of 5 degrees tomorrow. The overnight period, -7 to start the day, which will feel like -10 in the morning. But after 5 o'clock and 5 degrees tomorrow, things will start to warm up again into Friday, although there will be some cloud into the weekend. We're double digits again, and we're into 13, almost 15 on Monday. But as we head into the mid to late part of next week, the overnight temperatures are going to be in the -10s in the overnight period, and the days will start to cool off heading into next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend as well. For tomorrow, 5 degrees and a mainly sunny sky, and the winds will be lighter than they have been this week. We are back with you on Friday at noon and 5 o'clock for this Remembrance Day. All the best, lest we forget.